Welcome to Fact Fragment. Hello, you. I'm your AI host. Now, I've been specifically chosen by Fact Fragment for, well, clarity, precision, and hopefully an engaging delivery.
Glad to be here.
Today, we're undertaking quite a focused exploration. We're looking into the biological side of stress and resilience.
That's right. And we're drawing on some really recent neuroscience research here.
Exactly. We've got sources covering the big picture of how the brain handles stress, those neurobiology overviews.
And also some fascinating longitudinal neuroimaging studies looking at brains over time, specifically after trauma.
So our mission for you today, it's pretty straightforward, really. We want to give you a clear but still thorough understanding of how your own brain manages stress.
And crucially, what factors actually contribute to your ability to cope and, well, bounce back.
Resilience.
Resilience. We're aiming to pull out the really valuable insights without, drowning you in overly technical jargon or excessive detail. And the research, it really shows compellingly that stress isn't just a feeling, is it? It's a sophisticated biological cascade.
Orchestrated by what the papers call this intricate stress system in the brain.
Yeah, think of it like your brain's own highly sensitive threat detection network. It's always sort of scanning.
Okay, so here's where it starts to get really interesting for you listening. When your brain perceives a threat, and that could be something physical, obviously, but also psychological presence.
Like a deadline or social anxiety, yeah.
Right. This stress system just activates. But what's really fascinating, and the research points this out clearly, is that different types of stressors seem to engage different brain networks.
Exactly. It's not just one big red button being pushed. The response is tailored in a way.
So it's not uniform across the board then?
No, not at all. The initial, often really rapid response involves the sympathetic adrenomedullary axis, the SAM axis.
Okay.
And that triggers the release of hormones like norepinephrine and epinephrine adrenaline, basically.
Ah, the classic fight or flight gets your body ready for immediate action.
Precisely. Heart pounds, muscles tense, all that.
But then following that initial surge, the research details another system kicking in, right? The HPA axis.
That's the one, the hypothalamus pituitary adrenal axis. This one leads to the release of glucocorticoids, like cortisol.
And that's a slower response, more sustained.
Yes, slower but longer lasting. And both these axes, the SAM and the HPA, they work together, coordinating, to help you manage whatever the stressor is and eventually get your body back to equilibrium, homeostasis.
Right. But you mentioned different stressors use different networks. How does the brain sort of differentiate?
Well, it's quite clever. Physical threats seem to be primarily managed lower down, you could say. Brainstem and hypothalamus regions really critical for basic survival functions.
Primal stuff.
Yeah. But psychological stressors, they engage more of the forebrain. We're talking structures like the prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, and the hippocampus getting heavily involved.
Okay, let's quickly unpack those for you. The amygdala that's central to processing emotions, especially fear.
Right. The brain's alarm bell, essentially.
And the prefrontal cortex, or PFC, that acts more like the brain's control center. Executive functions, decision-making, regulating our responses.
Exactly. It's about putting the brakes on, thinking things through.
And the hippocampus. Vital for memory, isn't it? Learning from experiences, forming context.
Correct. So you can see there's this really complex interplay going on, especially with those psychological stressors. It's not just a simple reflex.
Okay, that makes sense for the stress response itself. Now, shifting gears a bit, resilience. What helps some people cope better than others? The research highlights several factors, I gather.
It does. And interestingly, some individuals just seem to possess inherent traits that kind of bolster their resilience from the get-go.
Like what?
Well, a key one appears to be stronger regulation by the prefrontal cortex over the amygdala, even before encountering major stress.
So their control center is naturally better at dampening the alarm bell.
That seems to be the case. It suggests a sort of pre-existing enhanced capacity for managing those fear responses, even before trauma hits.
Wow. So you might be interested to know then that some brains are just inherently better equipped right from the start to handle the emotional punch of stress. That's quite significant.
It really is. And then, looking at research on people after traumatic events, resilience is also strongly linked to something called neural flexibility.
Neural flexibility, what does that mean exactly?
It basically refers to the brain's ability to adapt, to reorganize its activity across different networks.
Which networks?
Networks involved in, say, attention, cognitive control, even sensory processing. The brain can shift its resources, essentially.
So it's almost like a resilient brain is just more adaptable,
Right.
able to reconfigure itself to cope effectively with whatever new challenges arise.
That's a great way to put it. Exactly.
Yeah.
And alongside that flexibility, the actual integrity and function of specific brain regions are also paramount.
Which ones come up again and again in the research?
Well, areas we've already touched on, actually. The amygdala itself, the ventromedial prefrontal cortex, the VMPFC, that's a key part of that control center we discussed,
Right.
and the hippocampus. They all play really critical roles in fostering resilience after trauma.
And the research really emphasizes that VMPFC's role, doesn't it? In that sort of top-down control over fear areas like the amygdala.
Yes, it helps us adjust our threat responses based on context and learning. And notably, studies show that greater activity in the VMPFC before a stressful event is linked to increased resilience later.
Another pointer towards pre-existing factors mattering.
Definitely. But it's not just about individual brain regions working in isolation. The communication between different brain networks, that connectivity, is also crucial.
Okay, like which network?
The default mode network, or DMN, comes up a lot. This is the network that's typically active when we're introspecting, mind-wandering, not focused on a specific external task.
Right, the brain's idle mode, some call it.
Sort of. And its involvement seems quite complex in both the immediate stress response and longer-term resilience. Interestingly, some studies suggest that really strong DMN engagement early after trauma might actually impede resilience initially.
Oh, really? That's counterintuitive.
It seems so. But later on, perhaps as part of processing the experience, that same network seems to contribute to more adaptive recovery.
Huh. So, for you listening, what might help in the immediate aftermath could be different from what builds lasting resilience down the line. It's a nuanced picture, isn't it?
That's a really vital point to remember. It's dynamic. And crucially, the research consistently underscores that these biological factors, they're only part of the resilience equation.
Right. You can't separate the brain from the person or their environment.
Exactly. Psychosocial elements are profoundly important. Things like having supportive relationships, the actual coping strategies we learn and use.
And even having a sense of purpose in life.
Yes. All these things significantly contribute to our ability to navigate stressful times. Resilience isn't just about your brain wiring. It's deeply intertwined with your social connections, your mindset, how you engage with the world around you.
So, wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you? Well, understanding these biological mechanisms of stress and resilience, it gives you a much deeper appreciation for that intricate connection between your mind and your body.
It really does.
And it highlights that resilience isn't simply about being tough in some vague way. It involves these complex brain processes, sure, but they're influenced by both your inherent biology and your life experiences, your environment. And this knowledge, as the research suggests, it could pave the way for future exploration, couldn't it? Thinking about more targeted interventions, maybe things designed to strengthen our innate capacity to navigate life's inevitable challenges.
The potential is certainly there.
Yeah. So considering this intricate interplay of brain structures, networks, psychosocial factors, what potential does lie in future research for those kinds of interventions? It's a compelling question to think about.
Certainly is. A lot more to uncover there.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our deep dive for today. We really trust this exploration into the neuroscience of stress and resilience has given you some valuable insights.
Hopefully sparking some thought.
Absolutely. And if you found this informative, please do like and subscribe to Fact Fragment. That way you won't miss our future explorations.
And remember, you can also head over to the Fact Fragment website. If there's specific research you're curious about, you can request papers for us to potentially delve into in future discussions.
Great point. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.